Relatives of Mark Fogle are expressing thanks to the Trump administration for getting him released from Russia. Mark Fogle was being held in Russia for what the family calls wrongful drug charges involving medical marijuana. Talking about this on Fox and Friends, Mark's sister Ann said their mother never thought she'd see this day.
She is, she's going to be 96 in just a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So I don't think that she thought that she was going to see this day. And she's a powerhouse, though. And she wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah.
She is the mother bear.
A special envoy said yesterday that another American could be released today. Meanwhile, President Trump says the release of Fogle may be a sign the war between Russia and Ukraine is ending.
You could be a big part of it, actually, because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over with Ukraine. And we appreciate President Putin's what he did. He was able to pull it off for you, right? He was able to pull it off. We think, and you're here, so it was great. We'll tell you a little bit more about it tomorrow, but I think we've made great progress on the war also. I want to get the war ended.
To the U.S. now, where California officials want an additional $1 billion to help pay claims to a state-operated fire insurance program. Here's Fox's Evan Brown.
California's insurance commissioner is asking for another $1 billion from insurers who participate in the state-backed program to pay wildfire claims. The program, known as FAIR, provides fire coverage to property owners who can't secure policies in the private market. As of last week, the FAIR program received nearly 5,000 claims related to last month's giant wildfires in the Los Angeles area and has paid out more than $900 million in funds. Those fires burned through an area the size of Washington, D.C., destroying 16,000 structures. An insurance industry estimate puts the losses at close to $30 billion.
Attorneys for South Carolina and Planned Parenthood are returning to the state's highest court today to argue how restrictive the state's abortion ban should be. Pro-lifers want the so-called heartbeat law applied around 6 weeks. Pro-abortion groups want it around 9 or 10 weeks. It will likely take several months for the state Supreme Court to rule. In final news, New Jersey lawmakers have proposed a bill to revive the teaching of cursive writing to elementary-age students. AFN's Bob Kellogg tells us why.
A group of New Jersey lawmakers wants to once again teach kids how to write in cursive. Cursive was done away with because of Common Core. Former teacher Janice Krause says using cursive can actually improve student recall.
Handwritten notes give you greater recall. It's something that kind of cements things into your brain, and it activates all aspects of the brain, not just segments of it.
WABC Radio reports the goal is to have students reading and writing in cursive at least by third grade. Krause says she's not sure why cursive was done away with in the classroom.
It seems to me, having spent years teaching in the classroom, has gone through phases. They tend to like fads, some word that's the kind of rallying cry for a particular year.
Some have noted that students visiting the National Archives could not read the original Declaration of Independence because it's written in cursive. I'm Bob Kellogg.
That's all our time for now. Find more news on AFN.net. That's AFN.net. It's not just what you hear on the radio at the top of every hour. Visit AFN.net for columns, videos, even a political cartoon. It's all there on AFN.net. Thanks for listening.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Today is Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025. And for those of you who it matters to, you got 2 days.
If you know, you know.
You know what I'm saying? You got 2 days till Valentine's Day. I'm Tim with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
Fred Jackson.
Hey there, Tim.
Anybody got anything on your heart you'd like to share?
I want to, not about on my heart to share, but I do got to ask, do any of y'all use your reminders for holidays or for...
You're sharing?
Or Valentine's Day or for events?
Like calendar reminders?
Yeah.
I don't.
Don't? Okay. So
Ed doesn't need to be reminded that he needs to be a good Valentine.
Guess
I don't need to.
He
Listen,
didn't
I've been
remind
married
you.
to
Need a
that
reminder
woman
about Valentine's
I'm sorry.
Day.
I've been married to that woman for 43
Right,
years.
right.
If she doesn't know I love her by
Be
now,
careful.
there is just no help.
Be careful. Okay.
She's not listening.
I don't know if you understood the question. I wasn't necessarily saying as a reminder of the day, but just a reminder that you got to do something that day.
Well, listen,
You know
we
what I
do
mean?
a pretty good job reminding each other
Okay,
about
that's
this
fair.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's what yellow stickies are for, Wesley.
Yellow sticky.
Yes, sir. Yellow stickies have stood the test of time,
Yes,
and they'll
they
be
have.
here 1,000 years after the cell phone's gone.
That's funny because I've got a bunch on my desk, and
That's right.
yet we've all got a phone, but I still
Right.
use a sticky.
No.
Now, I will use my phone, the alarm on it.
Okay.
So, like, before I come on this
That's what I
show,
mean.
I
Oh,
have
but
an
not
alarm
for-
that goes off at 9:45 and
Yeah.
an alarm goes off at 9:55
Yeah.
to make sure,
Countdown.
Central Time, to make sure I don't forget to come down here to be on the show. That can happen
Yeah.
when you're as busy and
That's
productive
right.
as
That's
I
right.
am.
Good.
Planning for Valentine's Day with your wife.
Or you're watching NHL highlights from last night.
I do hear
Fred,
those.
I'm insulted.
I do hear those from Ed's office is two down from mine. And
He scored.
I hear these. I think it's wild. Yeah, but there hadn't been much of that for his team this year.
No.
And been a good year.
All right. Speaking of a good year for the team, the head coach of the White House is Donald Trump. You know that. And the starting quarterback is Elon Musk. And they are jiving like Brady and Belichick, ladies and gentlemen, so far. And that's what we are going to talk about that this morning on the program. Jenna Ellis will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Again, we want to welcome, I should say, our new listeners from the Central Alabama area. We've got 2 new stations on the air, one in Birmingham and one in Tuscaloosa. And we welcome those folks, ask you to keep listening to American Family Radio. Let's see, 97.7. 97.7.
And I can attack good, strong signal.
Okay.
Because I was driving between Montgomery and Birmingham last week on the 65.
Okay.
About 60 to 70 miles south of Birmingham.
Yeah.
Brought it up on the radio loud and clear.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, 97.7. I was in Birmingham a week ago, and I was getting in downtown, downtown Birmingham. So it's a good, strong signal. And then, of course, the one that covers all of Tuscaloosa now, that's 88.5 on your FM dial. Weather this afternoon.
All
right.
Sports,
Probably what it was.
Partial score, Boston 34.
All right, tell us what head coach. What do you got? What's your first in the news?
Well,
stack
let's
there,
start.
Fred?
Certainly want to deal with the Elon Musk visit to the White House Oval Office yesterday. However, let's start with a celebration.
All right.
The freed American Mark Fogle says he feels like the luckiest man on earth. Mark Fogle, if you missed it yesterday, he was released by Vladimir Putin from a Russian jail. He is a teacher. He was arrested 2021. He was in country. He had some medicinal marijuana, and he was put in prison. Had a rough time there, from what we understand. But yesterday he was released, put on a plane there in Russia, and arrived in Washington, D.C. last night. And the first place he went was the White House, where he was greeted by President Trump. Want to play a little bit of their get-together last night, cut number 1.
I will forever be indebted to President Trump, to Steve over there, and Secretary Rubio, who met my son a while back, I'm a middle-class school teacher who's now in a dream world, and I love our country, and I'm so happy to be back here.
There's one report said when he got off the plane there in Washington, he actually kissed the ground.
Yeah.
There's another great side story to this. Yesterday, Fox and Friends interviewed Mark Fogle's mom, 95 years old, sharp as a tack, just celebrating when she got the news her son was going to be released. But here's the interesting story. You remember the Butler, Pennsylvania rally that where they attempted assassination against President Trump.
Right.
Before he went on stage that day, he met with Mark Fogle's mom, 95-year-old lady. He promised her that if I'm elected, I will get your son free.
Wow.
And that promise is made, promise is kept. It's a great story.
Even the small things like that I didn't know anything about that story until this morning.
Yes.
Was that even, I guess that wouldn't have otherwise been reported. It had been in the news because it's such a small story at the time.
Yes.
That he kept a promise that nobody else would have known, or he gave a do you give a promise?
Made a promise.
Made a promise.
Yeah.
That he later kept.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, and that is one of the things that Trump supporters love about President Trump is that we've said he can be gruff.
Sure.
He can, all those kind of things. His comments can be biting at times, but he does seem to have a really soft heart.
Yes.
For people who are under it.
Yes.
And who are
Unless
suffering.
you're Taylor Swift.
Well, she's not under it though.
That's true.
It's literally the opposite of what he's saying, because she got a lot of money and a lot of fame.
Yeah.
But in this case, this person's stuck in prison in Russia.
Yeah.
And
and this is a guy who
depends on how much money you make.
Right. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right.
How his attitude
How
is.
much money you make and how loyal you are to him.
Right.
Well, the point I was trying to make, unless you guys want to continue this conversation,
go ahead.
We'll come behind your back over here. Go ahead.
is that he really does seem to care about people like Mark Fogle. I mean, to make that promise and to keep it, as Wesley was saying.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. And people love that about President Trump. And we've all heard these little stories, kind of go back to what Wesley said, these things that aren't really big stories. They're not international stories. They don't deal with celebrities or well-known people. You'll hear little stories about how he goes to visit this person. He goes and says, makes a phone call to somebody.
There's been people that's worked for him at his hotels that he's paid their mortgages before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that endears people to President Trump.
There is perhaps, you talk about big international kind of stories, there is perhaps a big international story underneath this. Here's some other details. There was a Russian released from an American jail yesterday, unnamed. There are reports that another American prisoner is being released by the Putin regime today. A lot of people are saying, because we know that President Trump and President Putin have had a phone call to talk about Ukraine. And there is belief that all of this activity is a preliminary to some kind of major development on the Ukraine war front. And I say this is very interesting. This story just came in the last few minutes. Our Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Brussels today, meeting with NATO nations to talk about Ukraine. Here's part of the sweeping remarks that Hegseth had to say just a few moments ago. He says Ukraine must abandon the illusionary goal of a return to its pre-2014 borders and prepare for a negotiated settlement with Russia backed up with an international force of troops. I think Pete Hegseth was signaling to us that there was part of the discussion between Putin and Trump has to deal with some border readjustments must be made in order to put an end to this war. And Hegseth is also talking pretty tough also about America can't be expected to keep pouring all kinds of money into this.
Right. Well, there's just from now I've never served in the military, so that's a caveat. But I from what I've read from and paying attention to what has happened, there's no way militarily that Ukraine can push Russia out of the territories it's taken. There may be some slivers here and there where there can be some negotiations. And whatever you think about what Putin and Russia did in invading Ukraine, most people say, and believe that it was an act of aggression, naked aggression, and unjust war, all those kinds of things. All right, setting that discussion aside, there's no other options on the table for Ukraine unless they want to continue to bleed away the future in terms of their young men. They're not pushing Russia out. A lot of the people in that part of Ukraine are already Russian speakers. I'm not justifying what Putin did any more than I would justify what Hitler did in going into Austria saying, well, they're German speakers. Okay. So I know that I'm setting that stuff aside. The Zelensky and Ukraine are going to have to come to the table, and they're going to lose territory, and it's going to be where the Russian troops are sitting.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
Yes. So developments on that front, and we'll be covering it.
So you're saying there's some trading going on. In other words, this gentleman who came home last night, what was his name?
Mark Fogle.
Mark Fogle, who was being held in a prison in Russia.
For the last
we
3
sent
years.
them a Russian back.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so it's a swap.
And another American perhaps to be released today by Russia.
And a prisoner to be named later.
Yes.
Okay.
And another Russian to go back to, or just
I haven't
2 for
read
1?
I haven't read that yet.
Okay.
Okay. So I think it's all a preliminary to, I think we're going to see an end to the Ukrainian war within a year or so.
Yeah. Well, that's what President Trump promised. Now, he promised 24 hours.
Yeah.
I think that was hyperbole.
Really?
Yes.
You picked up on that?
Yeah, I picked up on that. I'm usually pretty quick.
Yeah.
To pick up sarcasm.
Yeah.
I work here, after all. I'm pretty good at picking up the sarcasm. But the hyperbole, I think, it's going to be an amazing thing if President Trump can get that kind of a deal and an end to the war.
Yeah. Good for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that war between Ukraine and Russia is just, of course, it's off the front page now, but for a few months it was on the front, there was the lead news story for at least for a couple 3 months. You remember that?
Yeah.
But it's just been brutal.
Yes.
Of course, war is hell, as they say, but man.
Well, let me just say this.
The number of Ukrainians and Russians that have died.
Oh, I know. It has had ripple effects too. So I mentioned, I think, to you, Tim, that we were talking about hockey earlier, and the National Hockey League is on a 2-week break because they're having a 4-team kind of like all-star game. So
4 nations,
and players in the NHL are playing for their nations, home nations. So there's USA, Canada.
Kind of an Olympics for hockey-only Olympics.
Finland and Sweden. All right. So it's just 4 teams, though.
Mm-hmm.
There are players from Germany, Russia, the Czech Republic, a couple other places that are not represented. And one of the reasons is Russia was not going to be allowed to play because of the Ukraine war. So that was part of the fallout of that. When you were talking about, Tim, about everyone talking about it, when they started thinking about this a couple of years ago to have this tournament, they said no Russians, no team from Russia. We don't want them winning a gold medal or winning the championship after they've invaded Ukraine.
Can I make a prediction? Of course, I'm no expert on international geopolitics, but I predict that what will have to happen is Ukraine will have to give up about a third of their country.
Eastern.
Yeah.
The eastern part of their country, about a third of it, just put the border there, and so Russia gets a third of what is now Ukraine. I don't know if that includes their, quote, breadbasket.
I don't think it does. I think that territory that produces all that wheat,
the fertile,
is
now
in the
Trump is
part.
so. I think that again, this is me just predicting where we're headed probably, because President Trump.
J.D. Vance said something to that effect. Has he not already?
I
think J.D.
Well,
Vance.
and Rubio did too. I think.
That's
Secretary
what
of State Rubio. But now Vice President Vance is either en route or is already there in Ukraine to meet with Zelensky, the president. And President Trump basically said yesterday that Ukraine is going to have to give us some of their raw minerals, their raw, what do you call them? In other words,
their resources.
Huh?
Metals.
They're natural. He wants natural resources to pay us for the money we've invested in Ukraine's, war efforts.
Yeah.
That's what he said yesterday. Talking about President Trump, he said we need to get something for our investment in.
This is the businessman side of Trump. I mean, all this talk about Greenland is really about you mentioned the military bases on occasion, Tim, but the raw materials and the resources. This is stuff that Trump's going, you know what?
Yeah.
We'll make deals, but you know what? It's not a free ride anymore.
Yeah.
We want stuff in return.
Yep.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. What's the next story, Fred?
There was a moment in the Oval Office yesterday, and if you didn't get a chance to watch the video, it's very powerful. President Trump sitting at the Resolute desk, and in the office with him was Elon Musk. And reporters were there, and actually President Trump didn't have much to say because he turned the whole thing over to Elon Musk, who was then peppered with nasty questions and accusations from the media. Elon Musk's response was, well, let me give you some examples of what we have discovered in our DOGE investigation so far. And it was incredible moments. He gave several examples, but I want to play you one in particular. And this is Elon Musk talking about Social Security. They've been looking at various Social Security accounts, and he says, we've run across some accounts where the people, if you look at their birth date, they're 150 years old, and they're getting Social Security checks. He thought that was absolutely amazing. Cut 5.
There's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork.
All right, so two things here.
I saw that this morning.
He's being serious.
He's being serious.
Now, your reactions.
Because I hadn't heard that before.
Your reaction's the reaction I had this morning when Fred said this.
Yes. All right, so we got people who are dead who are still getting Social Security checks. All right, there's nobody alive here in America 150 years old.
I feel that old sometimes, but I'm not that old.
Yes. But part 2 of this, he was talking about they're still using like handwritten applications when federal employees want to retire. But then he says the applications are going to a limestone mine. Now, I thought he was making this up when I first heard it.
It sounds like a joke.
Yes. However,
there's 700 government employees working there too.
In Pennsylvania.
In the line?
Yes.
We got witnesses.
There are pictures
like the biblical account where there's 500 or more. There's 700 or more.
There's 700 people working in this limestone mine, which goes into a mountain somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Come on.
No.
Come on, Fred. Y'all are April 1 and me here.
No, sir.
Now you got to explain a little bit about it. It isn't a mine, but it's not like what you're thinking, which is what I was thinking, like going to Mammoth Cave.
Like the 7 Dwarfs.
Yes, right.
Didn't they work in a mine?
They mined this out and then they turned it into like a functional.
Yes. It's a building in a mine.
Yeah,
if you've seen what is it, the Air Defense NORAD?
Yes.
In the mountain in Colorado, that's what the gate into this place looks like.
Look, Tim still suspicious.
But what Elon Musk was saying, okay, this is where the applications go. He's upset that 700 people are tasked using a pen and a pencil to fill out these applications for retirement. He said, "This is absolutely crazy."
He said that is the reason for the delay. That's the reason for the limitations of why so few can retire when they're ready to retire. It's because it's done manually. He said he said further in that interview that there is a elevator from the top floor down to the processing floor. He said, and that takes long enough. He said that elevator was built in the 1950s, and he said so the elevator itself is insufficient. That was a way of just.
Is this like near Area 51?
No, this is in Pennsylvania.
All right, hold on just a second, because we got 2 or 3 minutes here. Because I know I'm not the only one. Okay, I wasn't in our show prep meeting this morning.
Right.
Because I had Grandparents' Day.
Grandparents' Day.
At kindergarten, like you did yesterday.
I did yesterday.
So I had to go and do that. So the three of you met together this morning, and you had already
Brett Creeley,
and Brett Creeley, our producer. You had already heard what I just heard, right?
And I went and looked it up and watched the video from Elon Musk, and it's true.
Okay. So let me understand what he's talking about. He's talking about the inefficiency of the federal government, right?
Yes.
And he's given an example of the Social Security process, right?
Well, there's the Social Security.
Separate.
That's separate.
Retirement.
Yes.
This is he wants. If you want to retire government workers,
yes,
you can only do it 10,000 at a time.
Oh,
per
okay,
month.
I got you.
Yes,
because
and he found out why that was.
Yes,
so why that was is this antiquated system.
Yes.
you guys just.
That was one way to just emphasize the inefficiency of the government. And also, too, that's another reason why people are getting paid and not doing their job, because they're retired, but they can't formally do it. Yeah. So they're paying a lot of people that wanted to have been retired yesterday.
Okay.
But they're still getting a paycheck, but they're not necessarily doing their job.
I want Elon Musk to find out for me why it takes 3 weeks to get a letter from Tupelo to Boonville.
Or from Tupelo to someone else in Tupelo.
You joke. This is a joke now. 2 years from now, that may be his next task, because he's going to burn through this in the next year.
Yes. Anyway.
Listen, let me just say, a lot of great people working for the post office.
Yeah.
I love the lady who delivers our mail.
You don't have to explain that. We know.
Right. No, I know, but I want to make sure we don't get in trouble because of what I'm about to say.
Okay.
So I got to preface it. So we talked about earlier in the week, 3 million people work for the federal government. 600,000 are postal workers.
But is that a federal government job?
Yes, a federal government job.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking at some point Elon Musk is going to say,
we're
going to have to bring the post office into the 21st century.
Yep,
and we're going to have to figure out a way to pare back some of these workers.
I thought the Postal Service was an independent organization, not funded by the federal government.
No.
No, it's U.S. Postal Service. I don't think I'm wrong.
We got some more audio on this, but we also
we need to come back to what Elon Musk said yesterday. We don't need to
there's much more.
We don't need to get distracted here.
No,
And I think what you're going to find is that Brother Tim is right when I say that the Postal Service is not the United States federal government. But I'm not going to gloat. Here.
Yes. This is what AI says. Yes, the United States Postal Service is part of the federal government. It is an independent agency in the executive branch.
Yes.
So both things can be true at the same time, as Caroline Levitt reminds us.
And AI does not lie.
Yeah, and that makes no sense whatsoever. But we'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
There's a game that most of us need to learn how to play. It's a real exciting and rewarding game. And it is a game that nearly every person can play with good results. The name of the game is How to Play Second Best. Now, it's true that this game isn't a very popular one. Most of us don't like to play second best because most of us want to lead the parade. And there's nothing wrong, basically, with wanting to lead the parade. We wouldn't be worth much if we didn't want to be at the front of the march. But this is where playing the second best comes in. For any school child can tell you that a parade can only have a very limited number of leaders. The rest must follow. The real trouble comes when we don't get to lead the parade and must become one of the followers. Not many of us know how to do that and do it well. Too many times we let our disappointment turn into bitterness, and we become critical of the one who is leading. All of us have experienced this, having to play the role of second best. Fact about the business is that every one of us must do it every day. No person can be a leader in everything. Every person must follow in some things. There were two brothers once who were commercial fishermen. One brother was a natural leader. The other brother was destined to always be second best. Wherever the two were introduced, the introduction went something like this. Meet Peter and his brother Andrew. They are fishermen. Andrew was always the last one introduced. Even when Andrew was not with his leader brother Peter, he was still introduced like this. Meet Andrew, the brother of Peter. No matter where Andrew went, he was always second best, always Peter's brother. But playing second best didn't destroy Andrew. He knew how to play the game and played it like a pro. And anyone who knows the story about these brothers knows that Peter was what he was because of Andrew. There are some truths we need to learn in order to play the game of playing second best. First of all, second best doesn't necessarily mean one of smaller stature or of less importance. The backfield man does all the scoring and gets the publicity, but he'll be the first to tell you of the worth of the men up front. Then, too, being second best doesn't mean we haven't done our best. And if a person does his best, no one can ask him to do more regardless of what others are able to do. Real judgment comes not from comparing us against another, but comparing our results against our potential. For it's quite evident that all of us do not have the same number of talents. Andrew played the game like few people can. The thing that made Andrew great while playing second best was his deep-rooted humility. And unless you have that virtue, you'll never be able to play the game at all.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
We give thanks to God always for all of you, constantly mentioning you in our prayers, remembering before our God and Father your work of faith and labor of love and steadfastness of hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Thessalonians 1:3.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred, and we are talking the big. Well, there's every day there's big news stories, right? In the first 3 weeks here of the Trump administration, both international and domestic. And we were talking about the press conference that Elon Musk held yesterday in the Oval Office with President Trump there, basically asking Elon Musk to tell everybody what he's learned,
yes.
give him an update on what his work has, discovered. And of course, Elon Musk is the person. What's DOGE stand for?
Department of Government Efficiency.
Okay. Department of Government Efficiency, and Elon Musk has been going around Washington, D.C. and with his team of teenagers and his teenage techs, and they've been storming the city.
There is a few of them that are 19, but yes, but most of them are in their 20s.
Most of them are in their 20s. And so they are tasked with basically auditing these federal agencies.
Oh yeah,
and then in the attempt to find fraud and waste and to report to the American people what's been going on with their tax dollars. So, and he's working at the behest of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, that is Elon Musk and his team. So he's upset a lot of people, has Elon Musk, because he's having these daily tweets and reports and shining the light on things that he knows that the American people would find.
Yeah, but knowing that he's done that, he's taken the time yesterday to meet in the White House to answer questions to the press, and so
he's not shy about answering questions.
And you just gave some example. We dealt with a couple, and there's more.
Yeah, there's more. Play. Do you want to play another clip? Let's welcome Jenna in. Jenna Ellis is on with us. Jenna from the free state of Florida. That's on their signs.
It is, yes. And
Nice.
It should be on our license plates, actually. We're the Sunshine State, but I think the free state of Florida should be too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you drive into Florida, it says welcome to the free state of Florida.
I didn't notice that.
So good morning, Jenna. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm great here in the free state of Florida, where my family is in Colorado. It was 3 degrees out today.
Oh, my word.
And I said it's about an 80-degree difference, and I will take that in the winter over the summer anytime.
I hear you, sister. I'm no fan of cold weather myself. Nope. All right, so we are going to play. What clip are we about to play now, Fred?
Well, I just want to give you one more example. I don't have a clip of this, but he talked about
Do we have any more? Do we have any more clips?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do. But the other example that's going to blow people's minds, if you run a business, you have a book, and you keep a record of the checks that are going out to your suppliers, all right? And so when the check was written and who is going to, when it was cashed. Elon Musk is saying he's checking the books, federal agencies. There are places the check is going out, but here where it's marked, where it's going, there's nothing there. There's no names.
And there's no category where you can enter it into a computer and say, okay, this goes for
food. Or
Yes.
I'm using a.
So we know the check is going out. There's another column that says do not pay. So there's agencies that perhaps have had contracts with the federal government, but those contracts have expired. And the example that was given yesterday, like a consulting for 3 months, a 3-month contract. The contract ended years ago.
President Trump piped in and said some of them 20 years ago.
20 years ago, but the federal government is still sending them checks.
Yes.
All right? So the contract has expired 20 years ago, and we're still sending this entity checks. But Trump also raised something else. He believes there's fraud and corruption there, and perhaps there's kickbacks.
Yep.
There are people getting federal government checks and then in return sending some money back to somebody within the agency or perhaps a politician.
A re-election campaign.
Yes. This is going on.
You guys are so cynical. I'm really disappointed. Did your mom not tell you to think the best of people?
Yes, she did, and that was shattered years ago.
I'll play you one more clip. This is a warning from Elon Musk, cut number 13.
And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. What are the 2 ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1 trillion? And it's really 2 things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half.
He's a businessman. He wants to apply basic business principles to the government.
Yes, but Jenna's on because Elon Musk is not elected, and this is against the law and unconstitutional. Just ask Maxine. I need some more makeup waters.
Yes.
Go ahead. What about on a serious note? I know this is in your view. Is this what's going on? Is it within the parameters of the Constitution?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
interestingly, DOGE actually reorganized an entity in the executive office that President Obama actually established. And so as a blow to the leftists who were ready to file their initial lawsuit saying that an outside private entity board couldn't serve in the capacity that DOGE is, they actually are within the EOP, or the Executive Office of the President. There's a congressional research insight publication that you can read at crsreports.congress.gov that's titled Department of Government Efficiency Executive Order Early Implementation. And so the executive order just simply reorganized the U.S. Digital Service as the U.S. DOGE Service, using the same acronym as its predecessor. But the executive order that Trump signed on his first day in office just simply reorganized the USDS to implement the president's DOGE agenda. So these people who are actually mapping the USAID, the Treasury Department, all of these things are federal employees. They've been vetted. They've been given access, which is under each of these secretaries, who are actually under ultimately the president's executive order, which comes from Article 2, Section 1, that all executive authority is vested in a president. So this would be as ridiculous as suggesting that the incoming CEO of an organization can't ask his own accounting department to open the books and show him where the waste and potential fraud is, because it's a different department and he's hired as the executive. I mean, so these lawsuits have nowhere to go, and it's just showing that the left is really concerned that their woke gravy train is ending.
Well, Jenna, I know you're an attorney and a constitutional attorney, but I think you've got it wrong, because a federal district judge has ruled that this has got to stop. And, okay, tongue in cheek. So who's right here? You're saying this is under the executive branch authority in the Constitution. Why is this federal judge saying, no, you got to stop it, or at least we're going to delay it?
Well, federal judges, with all due respect, are also under the U.S. Constitution. So they only get their specific limited delegated authority from Article 3, which requires cases and controversies. That's their only subject matter jurisdiction. They cannot answer policy questions for the executive branch. For all of these agencies that are, especially those that are created by executive order, if this was a creation under congressional law, which is more enduring, then there may be a separation of powers argument. But here, when you have things like USAID, for example, that's a creation of an executive order going back to 1961 under JFK, that can be dismantled or completely redone by another stroke of the pen. And this is also why, for enduring wins under Trump, we need to codify it into law so that a future president can't just come in and undo everything that Trump is doing. But for a judge to insert himself and to suggest that he has authority over how the chief executive officer administrates his own executive agencies is preposterous. And this is also why we need nationwide injunction reform in the judicial branch, because there's also something called forum shopping, where these woke leftist Democrats will go looking for a judge that they know will be on their side, who will issue a nationwide injunction that is effectively trying to hinder the executive branch from fulfilling their constitutionally delegated authority. That needs to stop. These judges need to be impeached and removed for their unconstitutional authority. Mm-hmm. Rep. Eli Crane, who I'm trying to actually get on my program either tomorrow or Friday, just filed a bill last night calling for the impeachment of this judge.
Well, yeah, I even if you agree with, and I don't, with the ruling of one federal judge, a one federal judge should not have the authority, and doesn't, constitutionally, to speak for the whole United States. I mean, if that's the case, we don't need to say say what jurisdiction they're in.
Right.
Just say they're a federal judge and they rule wherever they live. They can rule for the whole country.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where cases and controversies should constitutionally be limited and are. I mean, this is the argument against nationwide injunctions, that cases and controversies are limited just to the two parties and to the jurisdiction in which that federal judge sits. Yes. And so especially on the district level, this isn't the United States Supreme Court, for example.
Right.
And so the whole idea of nationwide injunctions, I think, violates the case and controversy clause.
We're gonna say,
I was going to ask, so where does this go and where does it end? What would keep a conservative, in quotes, federal judge from overruling this federal judge?
Well, ultimately, I think the U.S. Supreme Court will overrule it. But I had another constitutional law professor, Mike Donnelly, on actually yesterday, and I encourage listeners to listen to his comments because I think he's right that the Trump administration needs to simply put out a statement that this is a violation of the separation of powers and Article 3, and simply say we're moving forward with this regardless, and we are appealing this decision all the way up. They will ultimately get, I think, the right opinion from the U.S. Supreme Court. But what is the federal judge going to do in the meantime? Because they can't even impose anything like sanctions until the action itself is determined to be unconstitutional. So Trump can continue going with DOGE, and Elon Musk and everyone else can continue going, basically just ignoring this federal ruling until ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court sides with
as long as they are in the process of appealing it, you're saying.
Yeah, they absolutely need to appeal it. I'm not calling for judicial anarchy to just say, we can just simply ignore rulings we don't prefer.
Like he's doing.
That's what Biden did, but, which all conservatives rightly said, no, you shouldn't do that. But they need to have a very clearly articulated position. They've already done that. They're in the midst of challenging this, and I think they will ultimately prevail.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, but Biden, the United States Supreme Court said to the Biden administration, you cannot unilaterally wipe people's student debt out and just pass it on to the taxpayer. You can't do that. You don't have the authority to do that. So Biden said, okay, well, I really don't care what you say, Supreme Court. I'm going to do it anyway. And he did it. Ostensibly, he did it another way to get away from the reason why the Supreme Court said, no, you can't tell somebody they don't owe the federal government back the money they loaned them.
Right.
And the people on the left didn't say anything then about,
Well, and also, this is a very different posture to begin with legally, because in that instance, the court was telling Biden, you don't have the authority for this act. That's the can question, which is a legal constitutional question. Can or cannot is always a matter of actual authority. Can the executive do the act that they're doing? The policy question is what's being contemplated in this federal judge with Trump saying you shouldn't do this. The impact will be damaging. All of the should questions are policy and political.
Yes.
The political question doctrine goes all the way back to very early on in the U.S. Supreme Court, saying that the court does not have any jurisdiction to determine policy. They're not elected. That's what we have the two co-equal political branches for. So at its very inception, these two cases are very, very different. And of course, Biden just saying he ignores it. You're right, Tim. I mean, the left was championing him for doing that then. I'm sure that they're looking at probably impeaching Trump if he does that.
Right.
Which thankfully they can't do because of the majority of Republicans. But this is why the midterms, by the way, are really important too.
Yeah. All right. Jenna, tell us about your relatively new podcast you're doing for us here at American Family Radio, because I know a lot of people listening to us right now do listen to your morning show from 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time here on AFR, Jenna Ellis in the morning. But in addition to that, you host a podcast. Go ahead and tell the folks about that.
Yeah, it's called On Demand, and we do a deep dive on issues that you're concerned with, questions that you have, and guests you'd like to hear from. So it drops every Friday morning, and this Friday we have Paul Teller on, who's been in the policy world in D.C. for 30-plus years. He was a former member of Trump's first administration. We kind of previewed it yesterday on the show because there are so many questions surrounding these policy considerations and how can Trump actually accomplish things like reducing income tax and reducing inflation and getting DOGE handled. All of this we're going to do a really deep dive on. Last week we had Congressman Jim Jordan on talking about those enduring wins in Congress. So we get to just do a lot more of an in-depth conversation with one guest on the podcast, and it's called On Demand. You can find it at afr.net under the podcast tab.
And there's also a podcast available for your daily show. So there's On Demand for this deep dive, and then there is the podcast for Jenna Ellis in the morning. So if someone missed yesterday's radio program, they can go back and listen to the podcast for that. Both of those are located at afr.net.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Jenna,
well
thank you. Take care. Appreciate you being on with us today. And Send
Thanks,
your
guys.
I'm sorries to your family where it's 3 degrees in Colorado.
Yeah, I will. I'll let them know that we're thoughts and prayers are with them.
That's it.
All right, thank you. All right, that's
Thanks.
Jenna Ellis joining us there. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Listen, I've mentioned this before. I know there was some concern. In fact, Allison, my wife, and I were having this conversation about a month ago or so, and she goes, I like Elon Musk, but I don't know about him being so close to the president. I'm not sure what's his
Motives.
what's his angle here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and although there were a lot of people, we had people, email us and call us and say, hey, what do you think about this Elon Musk fellow being so close to President Trump? Is that good or bad or indifferent or whatever like that? And my opinion was time will tell at the time, but I also thought it would be good on balance. I don't know. Elon Musk, I think, helped President Trump win.
Yes.
And he helped him win. Elon Musk did not have to do what he did. As I mentioned before, Elon Musk could be on his yacht, one of his 25 yachts.
Yeah.
That he doesn't own 25 yachts, but I'm just saying the guy is the richest man in the world. The richest man in the world. He has multiple successful businesses. What is he in his 40s? What is he?
I think about that.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So got his health. He doesn't need this to be in a snowy Washington D.C. trying to go into the
53.
He's 53. Okay, he's 53 years old, and so he doesn't need this. You might say, well, he's doing it for it's a power.
Okay, yeah, but either way, he's doing good work, so I don't care if it's power or not.
Well, and
I don't think he is driven by power.
I don't
but
think
some
he is
people would
either.
say- Go ahead.
Yeah.
But
I was just going to say, when he was at the White House yesterday, he was being interviewed by the media, and he answered the question. Now I'm with you. Time will tell. I don't know what's in the man's heart and mind. I have a problem with some of his ideas about transhumanism in terms of combining human nature with technology. I think that's just sci-fi voodoo. But he was answering questions and saying, listen, I answer to the president.
Mm-hmm.
I talk with him just about every day.
He said that.
Yeah, and he said, I ask him, is this what you want me to do? So it is
Okay, well,
unusual.
good for him. I'm glad he said that. And he said that in front of President Trump, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Well, and Trump, because a question from the media was, your companies have contracts with the government.
Yes.
And apparently he does have companies that have contracts with the Pentagon. And Trump piped up and said, we want complete transparency. We're going to put the information out there, and Elon Musk is not going to be doing assessments where his companies are involved.
Good
So,
point.
So
Yeah.
that was brought up, and it was clarified.
Yeah, and also usually if there's some motive to someone, I'm just generally speaking, usually you're a lot more aggressive when people accuse you of things you didn't do. And so for the media to attack him the way that they've attacked him personally, and all the accusation and lies that they've put on him, for him just to act calmly and answer every question one by one with this.
While these 3-year-olds bouncing on his head.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That goes to show exactly. That goes to show you that he's just trying to he's trying to get everything out there, and here you go. This is just a matter of fact for him. There's no personal
Right. He doesn't have a long history of partisanship.
Right.
Okay.
No, that's right.
Elon Musk, he pretty well is like an umpire's eyes. He's calling on them like he sees them.
I will say this, and I don't think this is a bad thing. I think there is a little bit of personal self-preservation involved, because as a businessman, he doesn't want the country going down the toilet.
That's true.
And he sees all this waste in government.
Right.
He talked about the debt and was saying, listen, if we don't get the debt deficit under control, the debt will swallow us up and our country will go bankrupt. And so, but aside
Some
from
people
that,
do get fascinated with balance and budget and economics and finances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's wanting the country to prosper.
Yeah.
For his own purposes, his own vision. The guy said he wants to colonize Mars, which I think is also ridiculous. But hey, I'm not going to argue with a guy with a brain that size.
Will they have football? I mean, you're going to have to. I think you're going to have a hook for people.
Yeah, football on Mars.
If you're going to get Americans on board,
yeah,
you're going to have to say.
Is there going to be pizza?
Yeah,
pizza on Mars.
Pizza and Super Bowl in the year 2050 will be on Mars.
Solar system Super Bowl.
The solar.
And an AFR radio station.
Yes,
right there on Mars. Listen. So I think we can all agree. Can we not all agree that? At least right now, the service that Elon Musk is providing to the President of the United States, answering to the President of the United States as his subordinate. And in fact, I didn't hear all the press conference, but I'm glad that Elon Musk said, "I'm only doing what President Trump approves."
And then he also said, "And I'm only doing what President Trump approves, and President Trump is only doing what the American people voted him in for."
Yes.
Hey, bingo. He just dunked on the liberal press.
Yes. I'm telling you, I listened to the whole thing. If anybody's heard the first 5 minutes, some of it was a little bit hard to follow, but mostly his first 5 minutes was laying out a basic form of conservative economics and capitalism and how things work, which seemed very elementary as I was listening to it. But the people in the room, it was kind of, for the left, it was kind of foreign. You would want to do these things. But as he was laying it out, I was like, well, that makes sense. Right. Yeah, let's do that.
Right.
So, anyways, it's a breath of fresh air that he's able to do something like this.
And Fred, the depth of corruption and incompetence in the federal government that he's laying out and the DOGE is discovering is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the most disturbing facts in all of this. This has been going on for years.
Yep.
Oh, decades.
Why haven't other Republican governments
That's a problem.
done something with it?
Well,
why did it
they're
take
both tainted by
one guy?
The reality.
So they're both tainted, but at least the Republicans are smart enough now not to say anything. They're just moving on. The ones that have taken kickbacks. Now, you don't see any Republicans getting involved in this. No, I don't think this is right. This is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But everyone else on the left, I think this is counter to what they should be doing. If they don't want their name called, and they just want it to. Then they probably should stay out. They should probably sit this one out.
Yeah, it sounds like they're defending the incompetence and the corruption.
That's
what it sounds like.
And
the media too.
That's
it's like, why
I'll tell you,
uncover this?
in my opinion, what they're defending. By they, I'm talking about the Democrats, and not necessarily all of them. There are a handful that are halfway rational.
Fetterman.
John Fetterman, for example, the senator from Pennsylvania. But I will say this. The United States federal government and its varied agencies they are dominated by left-wing bureaucrats.
Yeah,
that's right.
And they only hire their own over the decades. That's why the federal government employees, especially around Washington, D.C., are going to vote 80-20 Democrat, maybe more, I don't know. So they're protecting their own jobs and also the indoctrination that they can do with these agencies to promote wokeism.
Yeah.
Like the Department of Education, for example. They're angry that they're losing control of that. We will return momentarily with more of today's issues.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
You're aware of how important it is to stay engaged in America's culture war. One way American Family Association helps you to do that is through action alerts. Here's how it works. Once or twice a week, we'll email you about matters critical to America's families, and we'll offer ways to take action. Visit afa.net today and tap the Action Alert sign-up button.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Tulsi Gabbard as the next Director of National Intelligence. President Trump wanted the veteran and former Democrat for the position. Here's Fox's Chad Pergram.
Just before the roll call vote began, you had Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, indicating that he didn't think that any Democrats would vote for this. He was rather proud of that. And on the floor this morning, you had John Thune, the Republican leader, saying that, Tulsi Gabbard used to be a Democrat. Maybe she's seen the error of her ways. Just after this roll call vote, the Senate will vote to break a filibuster on the nomination of RFK Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. He will not be confirmed today. That vote will come tomorrow. We expect Democrats to run out the clock.
Stay with AFN.net for more on this developing story. The House Department of Government Efficiency Subcommittee is holding its first hearing today. Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and other House Republicans are joining President Trump in his efforts to cut what they call wasteful spending.
This committee will be laser focused on bringing full transparency to waste, fraud, and abuse within the federal government and presenting the plans to fix the tremendous problems we expose. We as a country are $36 trillion in debt. That is such a stunning amount of money. It's absolutely staggering to even comprehend how we as a people, we as a country, found ourselves here.
Democrats think the Department of Government Efficiency will take away so-called safety net programs. One representative referred to Elon Musk as President Elon Musk, building off liberal criticism that Musk is an unelected bureaucrat running the country. A retired FBI field agent says the agency needs to gain back its integrity and what its real focus is. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
Recently, President Trump announced that he intends to fire some of the FBI personnel who were on duty during the Capitol protests, asserting that some of them were, quote, corrupt. Trump recently pardoned many of the individuals who were arrested that day for questioning the validity of the 2020 presidential election. The Justice Department is reviewing how the agency handled investigations surrounding January 6th. Meanwhile, the Senate is scheduled to vote on Thursday on the confirmation of Kash Patel to become the new director of the FBI. And he has promised major changes in the agency, which Trump contends is biased against conservatives. Adolfo Baeza spent 21 years as a special agent for the FBI. He says a change is needed.
The DOJ was very politicized. They backed off from the main focus, crime. I left under Comey. I retired when Jim Comey was the director. The focus shift from crime to more of the politicized version of that it is today. And I think the FBI needs to gain back its integrity and what its real focus is.
Baeza says a lot of agents just blindly followed directions.
They're very hardworking, good agents, but they're between a rock and a hard place. They were put in that place. So where do you go from there? Do you stand up on your morals and your integrity and walk out the door, or do you suck it up and continue with what you don't believe in? That's a moral character that you have to decide on yourself. I, myself, would have stood up against it.
I'm Chad Groening.
The future of one of the nation's most restrictive abortion laws will be argued today in South Carolina's top court. Fox's Evan Brown reports.
South Carolina's Supreme Court today will hear the case of the state's fetal heartbeat law. First enacted in 2023, it criminalized abortions in the state if fetal cardiac activity could be detected, which usually comes at about the 6th week of a pregnancy and usually via ultrasound exams. Planned Parenthood sued to stop the law, saying in some cases fetal heartbeats aren't detectable until the 9th week. The law does allow for exceptions such as medical emergencies and sex assaults.
In final news, heavy snow and freezing rain caused hundreds of crashes in Virginia and left tens of thousands of residents in the dark as the central Appalachians and part of the mid-Atlantic states are bracing for heavy rains. The National Weather Service says 14.5 inches of snow fell over a 24-hour period in Iron Gate, Virginia, as of last night. In California, a storm is expected to move in today and cause flooding across central and southern California. Find more news on AFN.net.
When you see trash in the media, submit it to 1millionmoms.com. Over the years, 1 million moms and our partners have improved advertising choices of programmers and content seen on TV. Just like you, 1 million moms want to protect little eyes and ears from the trash that could hurt them. So when you see trash in the media, visit 1millionmoms.com. Scroll down and look for the Submit Trash button.
Take it away!
1millionmoms.com.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of this here program. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10:05 to 11:30 Central Time, right here on American Family Radio. Fridays, we have our trivia show. We have a lot of fun. So if you haven't tuned into that, join us on Friday. Monday through Thursday, we talk about how we live in the end of the world times. And no, we try to bring some sunshine to the what's going on in the world. There's some good things happening. Joining us now to tell us about it is Steve Paisley Jordahl. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody. I don't have all good things to say or good things to
Right.
tell you,
Well,
but
no.
I do have a couple.
Yeah, well, that's good. You got to balance it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. The glass is half full.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about,
There
Steve.
you go.
Half
empty
full.
or full?
No, he said
No,
full.
empty, okay.
He said full. That's a good attitude.
There you go.
Right there. We thank everybody for listening to AFR. And Steve, what's your first story?
Well, it was interesting. We were talking at a store meeting, and this came across. So, you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, right?
Yes.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is an atheist, a scientist.
Oh, I thought you were talking about my fantasy football league. Okay, I'm sorry. No, he's a well-known atheist.
Well-known atheist.
He thought he could dunk on Christians in the sporting world who always praise God when, thank God we won. I'd like to thank God, my Savior Jesus Christ, because we won. He tweeted this out. Curious that talented athletes frequently credit God when they win, but they rarely seem to blame God when they lose. Well, he's gotten ratioed on
He got
Twitter.
what?
Well, he's
blowback.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of blowback. So a lot of people saying no. A lot of people praise God even when they lose. And I wanted to play you one. I'm afraid I don't know who this player is. This is one of the Texas Longhorns. He's just coming off a loss in the Cotton Bowl. They lost to Ohio State in the national championship game, 28-14. And so this is a losing. I think it's one of the players, and I wish I could tell you who it was. But at the end of the press conference after the game, this is what he had to say. Cut 15.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, it's been amazing, just the opportunity. But at the end of the day, like, I just want everybody to know, like, usually sometimes you always don't come out on top. But like we won. We truly know who our leader is, and that's God and Jesus Christ, and ultimately just having the ability to use the gift that He gave us to share it to the world. I mean, it's been amazing, and obviously amazing for me just growing up in Austin and then having the opportunity. But everybody's not blessed to do the things we do, to be here. You know, people dealing with fires and chaos in New Orleans. So just to have the opportunity to glorify God on the football field, it's truly been an honor. So I appreciate everybody.
That would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the national championship game was the first week in January, I think, wasn't it?
In New Orleans.
New Orleans. Well,
that wasn't the national championship game. That was against Notre Dame, right?
Okay, it was
the playoffs.
Playoffs.
Yes. Playoffs.
I just wanted to mention that.
Y'all want
we got whooped
y'all
in the
want to keep
championship.
correcting Steve. He's got a point here.
Yes.
No, if I'm wrong,
I know.
Far be it from me to see the forest for the trees.
That's it. Yeah.
The point is that the point is that there are people that a lot of people who are Christians do have a good perspective on.
That's right.
On the world, and just because they do credit God and mention the name of Jesus in post-game interviews, maybe where they've won a game or games or played well, doesn't mean they also don't praise God for life and His blessings when they lose. It's not contingent on winning and losing a sporting event. Your relationship with God. I think this atheist fella, what's his name?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I think he
somebody messed up his burger.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Right
That's
there,
what
somebody messed
I
up
like
his
that,
burger.
man.
So, so he
Yeah.
said, you know what? Christians usually thank God here, but I'm gonna make a point to say they don't.
Right. Listen, I'm gonna wax eloquent on some theology right here.
Go right ahead.
Okay. You guys don't have to necessarily agree with
2
me.
Corinthians, give us your best.
Although I'm right.
Galatians.
I'll give you some 2 Corinthians right here.
I'll at you.
No,
Keep going.
God doesn't care who wins a football game. You can find that in the book of Revelation, chapter 3. No, God doesn't care who wins a football game, or a basketball game, or a gymnastics event, or whatever. I don't care what it is. This is my opinion now.
Yeah.
But my opinion is based on, I got Bible verses to support me.
Do you?
Yeah. But God does care about the individual people.
Yes.
Because they have souls. And God does bless people in different various ways. Some people, and this is what this player was commenting on, God does bless some people athletically.
Yes.
To do a certain sport, for example. And he was saying, I just thank God that he gives me and us the ability to play this game and to enjoy it. And that's all, to me, that's all God cares about is the individuals, not the team performance. Does that make sense?
I've done you one better.
Okay.
I've actually
You
written
got some better theology than that? Or you
No,
got something that complements that?
Compliments that.
Okay, go ahead.
I wrote an article called "Christ in the Gridiron," talking about my experience in sports, particularly in football.
Right.
And I use some of the same theology, but I also say God doesn't necessarily care whether we win or lose, but He does care about how we respond and how we behave and how we act on the field.
That's true, character.
Which is true about any occupation.
Any occupation.
Anything we do.
Yep.
Right.
I heard it years ago that when it comes to sports, that God likes to watch. He doesn't like to play. In other words, He's not putting His finger on the scales.
Sure.
Well,
Now-
he does for Alabama every once in a while. I'm just going to say what everybody else is thinking right now.
Now, this is not theology.
The Calvinists out there are going to disagree. And
Yeah,
they're
I've
gonna-
been wondering how much fun he has watching if he knows the outcome.
Hey, before we get too sidetracked, will you grab that
everything.
article and
It
put it up
wasn't
on
a
our
serious
Facebook page?
comment, but it's
Sorry.
what's that?
Oh, I was asking before we get too sidetracked. I know where this is going, so I wanted to get Brent. He's going to find the Christ in the Gridiron article that I wrote, and it covers this.
Okay.
And a lot of this stuff.
Put it on our Today's Issues Facebook page.
Facebook.
Facebook page.
Facebook page.
Facebook page.
Well,
all right. Back
anyway,
to the very
no,
serious point.
forget it because everyone's mocking. And no, I was going to say that the Calvinists out there, the Reformed, our Reformed brethren, would probably say that yes, God does determine in advance who's going to win, those kind of things. I don't want.
Then I got a problem with that.
I don't want to get into those kinds of conversations.
Well, I think I need to be told by the Lord, don't buy season tickets then. Because if everything is planned ahead of time and I'm destined to, as a Mississippi State football fan, to never, ever, ever in my lifetime have a shot, not a shot.
You're doomed to oblivion, sir.
At
Football
winning
oblivion.
at winning the SEC, much less than going to the playoffs, then I need to know that now.
You need to know that in advance.
So are you going to tell me that?
I'm not
Even with
Reformed,
12
folks.
spots, no chance.
No, not a shot.
We do have, by the way, folks, just so you know, we have people from all different stripes here at AFA. That's why we don't get into a lot of those theological discussions.
Right.
But there are Reformed
Because
people
people
who
get their
work
feelings
here.
hurt.
And so maybe you should have a question.
Somebody
and
who
answer.
does believe everything's predestined?
Yeah.
From the foundation of the earth, even sporting events?
Right.
They do believe that?
Guys,
Are we getting
could
too
go.
deep?
We could go. I
Yeah.
better. Y'all,
we should back out of this.
Yes, because I'm trying to stop myself. This is
From
just too
getting
much
into-
for me.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we'll just leave that right where it is.
Yes.
Okay. And people
Absolutely.
can make of it what they want.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll move on to more.
We do know that God says we're to love each other.
There you go.
And that's not even a question mark.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Back to you, Steve.
All right.
Back
Now,
to the news desk.
Walgreens is closing some stores in Los Angeles permanently. 5 stores in Whittier, Los Angeles, Orange, Placentia, and Stanton, California, received notices that they and their 93 employees are going to have to find other jobs, although they're trying to find places for their 93 impacted employees. Now, what they are saying is that the people are using Walgreens differently. They're ordering pharmacy products online a lot more, so they're not going into the store, so they don't need the store, so they're shutting them down. But when you look at the pictures that go along with the story, everything's behind glass. So I'm wondering if maybe it's not just that people aren't going to the store because they get stuff online, but
those were all in California?
Yes.
All 5 of those.
But
Yeah,
there's a bunch around the country that are also going to be closed.
Well, they got 1,200 stores that they're looking at.
I was stunned by that. Possibility of 1,200 Walgreens stores closing in the next year.
I did read
a lot
that.
of people depend on Walgreens.
Yes, they do, to get their pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I read that article and did some reading on this. Now, I don't understand a lot of this. Some of this has to do with some of the Walgreens store managers were complaining about the insurance companies that do not want to pay the full amount that these drugstores like CVS and Walgreens want to pay. So there's some complications in there that I wasn't quite following. They were also saying, though, that some of these stores, like Walgreens especially, rely on foot traffic to not only buy the drugs at the pharmacy, but to buy the other products that are in the store. And those are generally more expensive to buy at Walgreens. I know that I've gone to both Walgreens and CVS at times to pick up medications. And there's hardly ever anyone in the store. Okay, those stores do not have a lot of foot traffic because I think most people who need the other stuff that Walgreens, for example, needs people to buy are getting that at a cheaper place. And the drugs are also a little bit cheaper at like Walmart. So this
what
is
about
interesting.
online drug purchasing? Is that growing too?
This is what the article said, is that people are getting a lot more of these kinds of pharmaceuticals
You know, Allison,
online.
Allison and I were talking about this the other day because, you know, I hardly buy anything just because that's just not my gift.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is to keep up with all our family needs.
No.
And go online and buy them. My wife's, she does that for us. You know what I'm saying? I have other
You have your other gifts.
I have other gifts. I have other gifts.
Which also
Right.
don't include taking care of the yard.
No, well,
theologically, we're not talking about spiritual gifts here,
No.
since we were talking.
I just wanted. That's right. I just wanted to set the table there.
Yes.
And let people know that I don't interfere with my wife's handling of all our family business,
You don't want to
including
get in the
purchasing
way.
everything. So I don't want to interfere.
Right.
So, so she does all that. But we were talking because since COVID hit, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of people who did the same thing. Before COVID, we didn't even know what Amazon hardly was. I'm exaggerating. We knew what Amazon was, but I'm talking about we didn't use it.
Right.
We, our family, or other online.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Amazon, but other places too. You know what I'm saying? Amazon being the top one. Yep. In other words, the idea of delivering products to your house. That we just stopped at Walmart or Kroger or Walgreens or Dollar General, wherever we needed to stop and get our stuff, and you know. But now, since COVID, a lot of people found the convenience of ordering things online and having it delivered to your house. That saves an hour or two of your time.
Right.
That you would otherwise have to go. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is a growing phenomenon, and I don't know exactly how you reverse that in order to save your brick and mortar stores from going under like these Walgreens are. And it may not be, it's not necessarily due to everything I just said, but that's a contributing factor, probably a big one.
I think that's why Lifeway went online only.
Lifeway Christian bookstores?
About 5 years ago.
Yeah,
5 years
they went out. They had brick and mortar stores. They went out of business.
Well,
a lot
it
of
costs
bookstores.
it costs a lot of money
to
rent these buildings, and so if people can get stuff online,
Barnes and Noble, did they go?
No, we
some
still
of-
have a Barnes and Noble here in.
I think they were more
Tupelo, where our-
selective on which ones they shut down, whereas Lifeway across the board.
We used to have a Books A Million. That's a
Yes.
but that went out of. I'm just saying, It's going to be survival of the fittest, and the brick and mortar stores in any industry is going to be hard to survive. Well, keep your head above water. Now I'm thinking your clothing stores they should make it because
got to touch, feel, and try.
Yes, a lot of people don't want to.
I don't like to buy.
I don't want to buy
clothes.
stuff if I can't try it on or
Right.
see how it looks.
A lot
on
of
me in
people
front
do
of the
though. A
mirror.
lot of people. That is true. I do think they'll survive, but they won't be as profitable as they once were because a lot of people do order the stuff online, order multiple sizes, try the one that keeps the one that fits, and then sends back the rest.
Yeah, my wife almost buys all her clothes online, and then she has a lot of returns, and she makes me return them.
I hate returning stuff.
No.
I just hate.
Now
going
I
to
don't.
and
Y'all return stuff to the actual store?
No, if you mail, if you
Well,
buy
you go
email,
in
you
the
return
UPS
it.
store. It takes about 30 seconds. You
gotta
You
fill
walk
out-
up. You hand them. You hand them thing. You got the little what do you call it? Scan code on your phone, and you're gone.
Yeah.
Y'all not done this before?
I don't.
You have
It's a whole different experience. It's not like you're thinking about where you stand in line behind 10 people and then you have to give them your serial code and all this.
Well, that is what I was thinking.
Well, no, it's not like that anymore. You go into this is the UPS store. You have to take a return. It takes all of you're in and out in 60 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, if there's nobody there.
I
Go
bet
ahead.
if you're returning via UPS, but you usually have to contact the maker of the clothes to tell them you're sending them back.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
that is all right. Hey, so I know you guys have been talking a lot about DOGE and the cutting of the waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government.
We have.
Yes, I think you've been talking about that.
We're against it.
Yeah, there you go.
Waste, fraud, and abuse in federal
I do not
government.
support that
We have
message.
all voted here.
Yes, we're against.
It was
we're
3-0. We're against it.
Well,
I thought you meant against what he's uncovering.
No.
Okay, all right.
We're against the fraud and the corruption.
Yes.
And the,
okay.
Well, and you know that
incompetence.
President Trump has offered federal workers a buyout. If they don't want to work for him, they can leave, and he'll give them 8 months worth of severance and be on their way with his good wishes and everything. This is not sitting well with the federal employees union and everything. So and this, Tim, you might not have known this, but did you know that the federal employees union has a choir?
Oh, I forgot about this story.
No, Steve, that comes as a complete shock to me.
Well, they do, and we listened in on their choir practice the other day.
Okay.
This is what they were doing. Cut 11.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against DOGE. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon's kept within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Trump's coming for our unions. He wants us all to fail. He wants us to bow to him, but we want him in jail. They say in the capital city there are no neutrals found. You're either with the union.
Yeah, they need a little work, but the concert's coming up in.
You were at Grandparents' Day. You missed us playing that this morning. I was embarrassed for this lady.
Yeah. Who was the lead singer there?
That was union boss Karen somebody. I don't know.
It was Meatloaf.
Yeah.
And he's dead.
Right. Hey, she's Meatloaf.
He's not, actually.
He's not?
He is dead.
Meatloaf?
Isn't he?
I think so. Anyway,
Meatloaf,
I'm not making fun of being dead, folks.
Meatloaf died. He did.
Okay.
That was uncalled for.
Well,
I would just say nobody asked for that.
No, but I see it. I see things. I often see things differently. Somebody sat down and actually wrote the lyrics of that. She didn't stutter.
They did.
She didn't know where she was going with the next word.
She had memorized.
She knew. That was off the top of her head.
Yeah.
Sat down and
they
wrote
thought
that.
it was a good
But
lyrics.
somebody somewhere listened to her sing it and it said, "What do you think? What do you think?" And then that person lied through their teeth.
I can tell you who it was. It was her husband.
Her husband said, "Yeah, yeah, honey, sounds good to me.
Sounds good. You go for it.
Alan's
You go
out there
for it,
running-
dear."
By the way, we need
Hey,
to mention
do
that
you mind? I'm watching the ball game.
And no, that dress does not make you look fat. Okay. We do need to mention that Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah. This just happened just about less than an hour ago. The Senate has confirmed Tulsi Gabbard to be the director of the National Intelligence.
Okay.
And this was one of the controversial ones. Remember, Tulsi was a Democrat for a long time.
She was.
And
she saw the light.
Yep. Then she got red pilled. She came over, and she's going to be Trump's DNI. It was a party line vote, except for one vote. One Republican voted against her, Mitch McConnell.
No surprise to our audience.
He's getting his revenge.
Yes, he is.
Against Trump, talking about his wife.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
yeah.
That'll make a man mad, and he won't soon forget it. Ted Cruz did. But, Mitch McConnell's not gonna.
Do y'all, just for discussion's sake here, do y'all remember years ago, 5, 10, 15 years ago, where we constantly had, we meaning the Republicans and the conservatives, constantly have someone who started on our side on various levels, but by and large Republican or conservative, and eventually as soon as they got, or as they were elected, eventually they began drifting the other way, and it happened one after the other.
Supreme
one
Court
after
justices.
The other. Both Supreme Court, all on both sides, all politics, all the way. But if you notice, and I just want to point this out, that in the last 5 years we've seen more come, and I would have told you in that moment, you never see it go the other way.
Yeah,
You never see it go the other way. It never does, but we're seeing it come the other way now. I mean, between you got the Joe Rogans, you got Elon Musk, you got RFK Jr., you got Tulsi Gabbard. There's
Bill Maher.
Bill Maher. Well,
to a certain extent.
Well, even those are still Democrats, even though we share more in common with those Democrats.
Right. They haven't. Yeah.
But the ones I already mentioned before that, though, they're Republicans by name now.
Yeah.
Like Tulsi Gabbard and others. So we're seeing, and I do think that's helping a lot in a lot of ways. Now, I know there's cautionaries for the conservative movement. I get that from being the big tent.
Right.
Okay, I get that. But generally speaking, right now they're not going in and also trying to pull back the other way. They may be more passive on some things that we're more passionate about, but they are passionate about the things that we can agree on.
Tulsi Gabbard confirmed by the Senate. Next up, Kash Patel.
Yes.
No, well, the Senate is voting right now on RFK Jr.
Are they?
This is what I'm seeing on Fox.
Good.
It says,
is he going to make
live.
it? Is he going to make it?
I think he's supposed to, right?
I think everybody's
but Mitch
looks
McConnell,
like they're going to be there.
So this says, watch live. Senate votes on RFK Jr.'s confirmation to be health secretary under Trump administration. I'm assuming that'll probably go well.
I think the Republicans are in charge of the Senate. So John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, can decide when we're going to vote on something. I would think. So I look for him to bring up Kash Patel the next day or two.
Probably by the end of this week, I think.
That's two big votes right there today. If they confirm RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard.
You listen, heads are going to spin off their shoulders if RFK Jr. is confirmed. I'm talking about on the left.
Yeah.
Heads are going to spin off their shoulders?
Heads are going to spin off.
That's probably caused by a vaccine.
and Anthony Fauci said maybe one of the first ones to come off.
He's got immunity. He got
yes,
pardoned.
He does, not from humiliation.
Anthony Fauci got pardoned, man.
He doesn't have immunity from humiliation.
Yeah. He is science, Ed.
Yes.
Don't you know that?
I am science.
I am science.
What he said. I am science.
I am science.
Well, how the mighty have fallen.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thank you for listening.